Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Sports Tech All Stars podcast. Hot on the heels of our recent report release, our Global Sports Tech Ecosystem Report for 2025 came out a couple of weeks ago. If you haven't downloaded it yet, please go do that from our website, sportstechx.com. You'll find it right there on the homepage. As with every year, we want to talk to the leading innovators in the space, and we have featured lists of 15 people that we believe are doing amazing things in the world of sports innovation and investment. And today we have one such. From that list, I've got the founder and managing partner of In Studio Ventures, Danny Curtin-Rada, on our show. Welcome to the show, Danny.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it. As always, excited to be on.
How's the weather? Are you in LA at the moment? That's where you're
I'm
usually
in
based, no?
LA. It's the sun is shining. I had a soccer tournament all weekend, so I was the whole weekend outside with my son playing a tournament here in Los Angeles. The weather is great as always, and I can appreciate it. Originally from the Netherlands, so as you know, a little bit more rain there, so it's great to be here.
Which is why I was asking. Normally, I'd be jealous of a nice sunny weekend, but we're having the same here in Berlin. But the reason I asked about the weather, because I know you're based on the West Coast. So when I segue into where you live, and also you covered where you're originally from, so fantastic. But walk me through that journey. First of all, what you do in sports technology and investment. I know you're a partner in a couple of funds. You've operated in a few roles as an investor, also as a founder in the world of sports, and have tremendous experience there. So why don't you walk us through your journey, and then we can land eventually on what you do at InStudio Ventures.
Yeah. So it all started in the Netherlands. That's where I've been born and raised. Started actually in the corporate world. So I worked 6 years for Vodafone, big telecom provider, obviously in Europe, but also globally. Different roles, mainly in business development, marketing. Made some great steps. And then I was recruited by Sony, based also in Amsterdam, office in London. I was managing the Vodafone accounts, obviously, because I was working there for 6 years. They were looking for someone who were able to manage this account. I knew the people there from all the levels up to C-level. That was great, a great journey. After that, I joined Tele2 for a while, was managing 3 strategic accounts, and I was able to close a big RFP there with one of these strategic clients. And then after that, I thought, okay, I really wanted to start my own business. My dad is an entrepreneur, my grandfather is an entrepreneur, so I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family. Actually, when I was sitting at the table as a young boy, I had all these entrepreneurial conversations going on. I didn't realize at that time, but it definitely planted that bug, that entrepreneurial bug in me. So I started with an action agency based in Amsterdam. It's called Enterprise Media. So I was more on the strategy side, setting up the agency, and my business partner, creative director. And we were working for different clients. So Walt Disney, Disney Channel, ABN AMRO, the police in the Netherlands, actually. A lot of premium content that we created. And that was a great journey. In the end, I was able to sell my shares. And then after that, I joined a group as a managing director and partner. And setting up the agency in the Netherlands that's affiliated to sister company 433. And 433 grew out to the biggest soccer community in the world. I was responsible with the agency for all the monetization on this channel. So think about partnerships with Nike, Adidas, FC Barcelona, Real Madrid, all these sponsors in that whole football soccer environment. So I grew the team eventually to 40 people, more or less. That went well. So we had great partnerships there, building that up. Very careful and thoughtful in the beginning. Okay, what kind of brands do we want to work with? Because we could earn much more money in the beginning, but in the end, you want to be very thoughtful about your community that we were creating and how do you monetize that. Long story short, we decided to open a second office in New York City. So I moved 6 years ago to New York with my wife and 2 little boys to run the business here in the States. Working here in the States with different brands like Nike, official partnership with DMLS. Then we opened a third office in Los Angeles. So that was the reason why I ended up here in LA. I was able to sell my shares. I did that. And then I thought, okay, what's next? What do I want to do? And for me, it's really about 3 things. It's about entrepreneurship. I was already a little bit investing as an angel in sports and media. And in the end, I have a big passion for sports and media. That's what I know. That's where I build up the knowledge. So I launched in Studio Ventures with the real why. Okay, you see all these amazing founders. They have great solutions, but they don't make it, right? We know also that 80% of these startups fail within the first 5 years. We want to decrease that. So how can you actually now make sure we're decreasing the failing rate? So we start investing in sports and in media and very hands-on. So almost more a venture builder model, where the thesis there was more to get a company from 0 to Series A in the best possible way. Average check size around 2.5 million to start investing in these companies and to get them up to speed, and then helping them with a very hands-on approach. So we helped also companies scale from overseas, from Europe here to the United States, helping them closing deals with, for example, Dick's Sporting Goods, Soccer.com, Pele Soccer. Just because we know the ecosystem here, we build up the relationship and helping them more strategically, because you cannot just copy paste it and think, okay, I'm gonna go to the US and that will work. That's not how it works, as you also know. So that one is up and running. Our latest focus is more on a later stage fund, where I can tell you a little bit more about. But in Studio Ventures is where I'm focusing on with a great team here based in Los Angeles.
I mean, you covered quite a bit already. Of course, you have an extensive experience in your career across the media industry, built within the sports world, and now acting as an investor. So seen quite a bit. Walk me through then your thesis in Studio Ventures. What kind of startups are you targeting? What stage of companies? I mean, you mentioned a check size of about 2 million, so it's not super early stage, but you also have an incubator-ish model. So I think there are a couple of different things happening, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So we started more with an incubator, very early stage. That's up and running. That's still, we're looking at some things, but the main focus is on a little bit later stage. So let's say Series A investments. Companies need to do at least 1 million in ARR, 1 million revenue per year. Focus is really sports, 20% media, and then sports technology. So the thesis there is, look, we're looking at a couple of things within Studio Ventures broad. So we're looking at some premium assets that are clubs, leagues, franchises. That's opportunistic, sports technology, everything what's happening there, and then the media side. Working closely also with the partners at Lead, the legacy of Adidas, right? So I'm a general partner also there. I think you mentioned it also in the introduction. So for us, we know the family and the guys at Lead already for many, many years. I believe in the strategy and the vision. So the two investment firms working closely with each other. And as I mentioned, I'm a general partner there. Create strategic team. In total, we made now almost 70 investments across the border. So from very early stage to later stage. So there's a family of funds where we can tap into and actually have access to different kind of stages, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've spoken with Thomas Rudy from Lead, the former chief investment officer there. And I mean, the team that I know very well, I actually met Aaron Nasser from Lead in Munich. We're recording this a couple of days after the Champions League final. Mm-hmm. So yeah, know that ecosystem quite well, especially they were originally based out of Berlin. And I know you've joined them and also got involved in some of their pretty interesting investments. I mean, I know Tomorrow Sports, for example, which is the parent company behind TGL Golf or the Golf League. Walk me through some of those kind of examples that you can point to and say, hey, either as in Studio Ventures or at Lead, them some stars in your portfolio, shall we say?
Yeah, Tomorrow, right, from Tiger Woods, definitely a great investment for us. Also there on the holding level where we invested. Great example where we believe in great partners of ours, where we working closely with. They are obviously now doing their expansion and launching the franchises. And also if you see the interest and the people who are potentially joining, let's say, for example, in Austin, I know the guys who are working on that specific franchise, where also Mark Cuban is involved. Joe Pampaloni, he's involved there. Plus a couple other strategic investors, previous and former team owners, so who actually can add value. That's also important for us. So we're not just an investment firm who wants to write a check and just throwing money at different kind of investments. We're always looking where can we actually add value. To give you a concrete example, we invested in Springbok Analytics within Studio Ventures just recently alongside the NBA equity team. The NBA equity team invested in 37 companies, have their accelerator program, Launchpad. Springbok won that in 2023. So the NBA, after the Series A round, holds around 55% equity. The NFL put in a 4 million grant into the company, and 20 franchises already using it. And it's a software for MRI scans, right? So where these elite athletes normally go into an MRI scan for 45 minutes, this software decreases that to almost 10 minutes. Super smart team behind it, all PhD people. The team is doing great. We know the founder very well, Scott, who's doing a great job in scaling and commercializing this. With our background also globally, having the relationships in Europe, we can actually also help with scaling it and adding value there. So that's the point what I'm trying to make. Great group, smart team, scalable solutions in sports and health. With our group, we have the access to these clubs and franchises and the teams overseas in Europe, because a lot of our LPs are athletes who playing for big clubs overseas, Premier League clubs, La Liga, Bundesliga. So we have access, and also with my previous background, we still have access to great teams over there and on a C-level. So that can be very valuable also for a startup based here in the United States, where we have that global approach with the people overseas in Europe, here, and then helping them with introductions. So we can call one of our LPs who's playing for Liverpool, he's calling his doctor and actually get the feedback on this specific product. And we get the thumbs up and have a concrete conversation with a doctor over there. We did the same with Man City, with AS Monaco, different kind of clubs overseas. We spoke with all the franchises. And again, that's something that gives us we are more comfortable. We're doing deep due diligence on all these deals. And again, where we can add value and make a difference, definitely not to sit on the CEO's chair, but where we can, as a partner, and I know a lot of VCs are claiming it, to be very hands-on and want to be involved. But we want to actually make that happen.
And that's an important offering now. It's clear in the market when you see access to capital. I mean, it's not like the market is flush with capital. It is a tough time for founders to be raising in. But as you mentioned, it's not just the capital, it's smart capital that you want to bring on your cap table.
Yep.
And especially when you talk about A-list athletes, that is very smart and capital that brings a lot of access. You mentioned the revenue of, say, around 1 million or so. You also mentioned US and Europe as important geographies. Can you talk to me about, is this a global focus? Is there only those two main markets, number one? And number two, are there any specific topics or 2 or 3 key areas that you're especially looking out for solutions on, or you're especially excited about as potential investment opportunities?
Yeah, global approach, especially, right? We're from Europe. I'm living here now for almost more than 6 years in the United States. We build up that global, but also Asia. We see opportunities happening there. I need to say what we see, and also if you look at the Sports Tech X report, right, you still see North America as by far the biggest market. Also the reason why I'm living here, I'm based in Los Angeles. There's so much happening here. The deal flow, the talent, and the sports technology market is huge. Also with everything that's coming up here in Los Angeles, right? We have the FIFA Club World Cup now happening. Also a lot on the East Coast, but also here in Los Angeles. The World Cup is coming up. Then the Super Bowl will be here in 2027, plus the NBA All-Stars. And then 2028, we have the Olympics, right? So there's so much big sporting events coming up, but we're open. So if there are startups based in Asia or Europe, definitely open to have the conversation. Actually, we are very concrete looking one from Europe, where we will invest in. So that's happening. Then specifically, look, with this fund, we have access, as I told you, to different kind of stages. But let's say this specific fund, that's the 1 million ARR. But if we take a step back, we have the premium assets. So we're looking also now at franchises, actually also the NFL and the NBA, where we will invest in. We believe there's still the valuation is very high, but if you just look at the figures, right, these franchises are outperforming the S&P 500 already for more than 20 years. The media rights for the NFL, 110 billion till 2023. For the NBA, it's 76 billion. So from an investor perspective, we know this revenue is coming in. There are all kind of uncertainties happening, right? We all know with the tariffs, and there are things people are a little bit afraid, okay, what's happening? These investments are very solid. Look, you will not 100x your money on an investment like that, but we believe as a fund that we want to have something in there that's legit. And an NFL franchise will never go to zero. To have something in our fund that's more the premium asset. It's also great for us because we're sitting at the same table with all these team owners. We have the access on that level with great people. So it's a strategic investment to have that access in our fund. We have the sports technology in there, big data combined with AI. Plus on top of that, we believe in investments. What's more is creating a flywheel for us. That's more on the media marketing side, if that makes sense. So these kind of investments are the platforms where we can create the eyeballs and have also access to that part. So that combination, we're almost creating our own ecosystem from that perspective. So that's something. And then if you go a little bit more deeper into it, youth sports is something where we're looking at. Huge, obviously, right? Also here in the United States, only if you look where we're talking about that soccer community, it's incredible how big that is here in the United States. The global youth sports will hit almost 77.6 billion by 2026. So these are massive markets. We're not on that level with all the data analytics and the performance. We can still increase that. And we started that conversation talking about my son. See these kids are working out a lot, right? Also here in the United States, you see some of these kids are playing baseball, they're playing soccer, on club level, and it's a different system if you compare that with Europe, right? That you can go into college and then actually get in the end to the highest level. But we want to be part of that as a fund to make a difference there. And then also women's sports. A lot of hype, a lot of things going on. We don't want to follow the hype. But if you just look at the figures, the NWSL, more than 500% viewer increase since 2019. We see there's something happening. It's also still not on the level if you compare that with the men ecosystem. So also a lot of opportunity there where we're looking at. And then still all the things in sports technology. So let's say athlete health, improvement, that's also something where we're looking at as a fund.
A lot to cover there, and the most important message is that there is so much room for growth. You spoke about the women's sports topic. I mean, I think it was just last week or a couple of weeks ago that New York Liberty became the most valuable women's sports franchise, right? An investment at a valuation of $450 million in a WNBA franchise, which probably even 5 years ago, nobody was thinking that they were getting to that level. I think, in fact, Sportico, depending on your source, Sportico, Forbes, and many companies, I think they gave them a valuation of 100 or 120 million just last year. So in 1 year, you can see that kind of appreciation. I think any investor is super, super happy with that. And that's just women's sports. You talk about youth sports, you talk about the influx of AI, and there are so many different areas that sports is growing in. Exciting time to be part of this space.
100%. Also, Angel City FC here, right? Bob Iger, 250 million. If you, to your point, if you look back 5, 6 years, nobody was thinking that.
Nobody was thinking about this. Brilliant. So one unique thing about you guys, especially with Lead, and I know also through In Studio Ventures, is, and you covered this already, the access to athlete capital, right? I mean, this is a big thing that all startups are looking for. And you guys are not only adding the athlete capital, but also, as you mentioned, the seat at the big table to try to invest in the leagues or the teams themselves.
Yeah.
Every startup wants this, I guess, right? Every startup wants to be on the radar of somebody like you or your LP group. What is that LP group looking for? How does this startup kind of raise a flag to say, hey, we are a bit more interesting in this highly competitive space as athletes become more active investors?
Yeah, I agree. Look, we are well positioned with our LP based, very strategic, great athletes from here in the United States, NBA. We have the biggest NFL players on our cap table. We have great, I still call it soccer, but in this conversation, we can also say football players who playing for the biggest clubs overseas. Yeah, it's about trust, right? That's where it starts. So the guys know us already for many times. We helping them also more broader, if that makes sense. So it's not that they just are an investor in our funds. We really involve them also in, okay, why are we investing in this deal? Involving them in deal flow meetings. And how can we involve them with our ecosystem and these specific startups? They can be a face, right? They can involve them. They have a great following. These guys have millions of followers on their channels. And these are not just followers, they are loyal fans. So what we're doing and what we're looking for is, okay, we can actually lower a sales cycle. We can lower your CAC. We can look at these kind of things. With the startups, what we're looking for, it needs to fit our thesis to answer your question, right? It's what I just described. There is that 1-2% where we're looking for that really fits our ecosystem. And then there needs to be a real match, because it's not just connecting the dots very quickly. I don't believe that will work, right? It's not transactional, because if we put a specific athlete and we combine it with a specific startup, And then the week after we do it with another one. That doesn't look good for nobody. But yeah, that's definitely something that we can offer with the two groups. Lead has amazing athletes, Hurricane, who's part of the ecosystem, and much more. Here, the guys and women that I just described. So more than happy and always looking for, okay, what can we do? So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, fair. I mean, it's one of those things that there's no magic bullet or there's no magic pill. You just have to keep doing all the things that investors find interesting. I want to ask one question specific about LA. As you mentioned in a previous answer, there is so much happening in your backyard. You know, I don't get to speak too often with people from LA, so I want to take the chance to ask you, is this runways for the next at least say 3 years with so much activity and important like internationally relevant events? What is unique about that market that a startup wants to move in there or a scale up wants to come in and set up base? What kind of solutions do you think are a bit more unique or approach that they should take to enter LA, which might be unique to that market? Because it is a very unique market. Major sports teams, obviously access to a big entertainment market as well. What's unique about that market that maybe a startup or a scale up might not know that they can use as information?
Yeah, look, I totally agree. LA is an amazing market. We have 12 teams here, right? So just start LAFC, LA Galaxy, the Rams and the Chargers, right? The Clippers and the Lakers, and again, go on and on. 12 teams. It is incredible what's happening in this city, just only with the teams. Just described all the big sporting events that are coming up. But the people also see it. I don't know if you saw, but also Sports Business Journal wrote an article about that it's the biggest soccer city here in the United States. They see it almost as the biggest sports city of the United States because of that reason. And then don't forget the whole media angle still, right? It's still Hollywood, Netflix, the big streamers who are all based here, the talent. You have an amazing talent pool here. It's very competitive, so don't underestimate it. Some people they try it, but also after 6 or maybe 2 years, 6 months or 2 years, it's too hard or they just can't make it. But if you have the chance, I will definitely recommend, if you're in that ecosystem and you have the chance to come out here and actually live here, because you need to commit, right? I also, for myself, I was from Europe, already doing business, flying back and forth. But if you want to do business, you need to commit to the region and actually live here. You have 9-hour time difference with Europe. That's just not working, right? You're not calling in. It's 7 or 7:30 for you. Here it's still the morning. So you need to commit being out there, still meeting people face to face. You have so much events and small communities where people, and they are very open from my perspective. One thing as a European moving to the United States, a lot of introductions. They love to make introductions with the right people. I think that's something that I always still appreciate. So it's to helping each other and doing business. So yeah, if you have the chance, this is still one of the best places from my perspective, especially for the next couple of years to scale your sports technology company. Still close to Silicon Valley, where a lot of things going on based on AI. Of course, there are other regions that are interesting. Right? A lot of people talking about the Middle East or other regions globally. But for sports, and especially for sports technology, I would definitely recommend exploring this region. And still also LA, don't forget we have 10, 12 million people living here. It's so big. Also within LA, you can choose different kind of parts where you want to live or want to open your office. But if there are people interested, I'm more than happy to help, or where I can help making introductions or giving some advice about how I build it here and what my experience is. It's not obviously just copy paste, but great opportunities definitely in the next couple of years for sure.
So Danny, you have me. I'm not going to live, but I'll definitely come to visit. I've never been to LA. I've only been to SF on the West Coast, but I mean, for all the reasons that you said, I know it's a city which is growing in importance in the sports world. So yeah, it's about time, if not within the next 6 months, but sometime soon.
Please.
I should be around LA for sure. Appreciate it. What's coming up? What does the next 6, 12, 18 months look like for you or in studio?
Yeah, definitely great momentum going on. Made some great investments in the last couple of months. Looking forward, what I just said. So looking at these premium teams, where we're looking at, very critical, because again, some valuations we just don't agree with. But building our own ecosystem, that's part of our strategy. So that's something where we're closely looking at. We launched our Athlete Council, So that's a much more structured way because we're working with so many athletes and involving them and just don't want to be a standard investment firm and just holding up our hand and that they're part of our fund. What can we do to also when they retire, that they feel much more comfortable in a boardroom or they really understand what they're investing in. And not because just a friend is saying, hey, you need to invest in this opportunity. No, why is this a great deal? Why are we declining deals? So this athlete council is a structure and a program more on the education about what's happening in VC, but then in a much more engaging way, not a boring, long financial story, but actually in a great way why we're doing what we're doing. We have once a quarter at least, all these athletes are meeting. So the second week of June, we have another one, 25 athletes at least will call in. We have an amazing speaker who will be part of that. That's a top entrepreneur, top investor. They can inspire the entrepreneurs. Plus, we're connecting the people so all these like-minded athletes can connect and doing even more business with each other. Because we see it's becoming more and more, I wouldn't say normal, especially in the United States. It was already happening, right? The guys like KD, LeBron, Serena, they were already doing this on a high level, but also I think in Europe, it's getting more common. Like Cody Gakpo is very active. He's part of our fund. And Mario Götze, I think, is an example who's very active in the space and is also talking about it on LinkedIn. These kind of athletes are doing great job on the field, right? Cody just won the Premier League with Liverpool, what's amazing. But also off the field, they are hungry. They want to learn. They want to sit in a room with all these other athletes and making these connections and doing smart things. And I think in the end, it's about the network. Just surround yourself with good people and making sure we can make these right introductions and helping each other. And so that's definitely something where we will double down on in the next couple months.
Athlete Council, I'll sign up to be a fly on that wall. It'd be great to even just listen to the conversation because you're absolutely right. Athletes today, I mean, it starts with the contracts. They're making more money now than they ever have been.
Yep.
The 8th or 9th player on an NBA roster is making 10 million a year. And they're not investing only in their neighborhood restaurant or some car dealership anymore. Now they're investing in tech companies because they know how and they have the right advisors around them to support at least some startups in their portfolio. So great to see that you're making more of this happen, and we'll definitely keep track of it. Danny, thank you so much for taking the time, for joining us on the show to talk about all the cool stuff that you do. Congratulations once again being featured on our Innovators list. It is because of all the cool stuff that you do. Before I let you go, my last question, I like to believe that we're all sports fans first. So I want to know what has been your favorite sporting moment.
It goes back to 2010, the World Cup. I'm Dutch, right? That year, I don't know if you remember, but we did very well. We were playing the finals, but against Uruguay. That was an amazing game. I don't know if you still can recall it, but that were the semifinals. We won that game.
Yeah, the final I was going to say was probably not such a good memory, right? Against Spain.
Against Spain, right?
Yeah,
we
Arjen Robben is true, yeah.
Very intense, but against Uruguay, great game. Snyder made a great goal from Bronkhorst. That long, I don't know if you can recall that, but it's still one of the amazing goals in history. So that was something where we can be proud of as a Dutchman. What was a great moment. Hopefully we will win that World Cup. But yeah, that was great. I think if you have the clubs like Ajax, Feyenoord, normally big rivals, but then right, everyone is in orange, big parties, and it's just one great nation. And yeah, that was very special.
What's your prediction for the Dutch team in the World Cup that's happening in your backyard?
Yeah, look, I think we have a great team, right? The guys with also a lot of these guys are actually, we're working closely with Cody and Xavi and Nathan, all these guys who are playing in the Dutch national team. Yeah, look, I hope for the best. I think we have a hardworking team, a great team who are playing for the biggest clubs overseas. It's gonna be an interesting one. I'm excited. It's close here. It's in our backyard, Mexico, Canada. And so let's go for that win. Let's go for a high result. But step by step. It's just making sure now. We get through the first rounds. But I'm excited. It's a big tournament also for U.S. soccer. Right, I think it's a big moment.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be a historic event. Obviously, the first expanded World Cup, the number of teams is more than ever before. Right, 48 teams instead of 32. 3 countries for the first time, and all of that. As a fan, all you want is a team that you can get excited about, which the Dutch always provide. Danny, thanks once again for taking the time. Really appreciate you coming on our pod.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Once again, a recap, if you haven't downloaded our latest Global Sports Tech Ecosystem Report, then do that. It is available on our website. And what's also available, we put reports out pretty quick, is our latest report on the Saudi Arabian sports and business market. It's a property that we've been working on for a while. Danny also mentioned it's one of the up and coming regions in the world. I recently had the fortune of spending some time in Riyadh. Also last week I was in London with MESIF. There are a few events and lots of activity, lots of investment activity, especially around that region. So go download our latest report. You'll find that as well on our website. Lots of good content coming to you as always from Sports Tech X. Stay tuned for another one next week. All right, see you guys.
Thanks for listening to the Sports Tech All-Stars podcast with Rohan Malhotra. If you like our show, let us know and leave a review. And if you want to know more about us, check out sportstechx.com, where you can find our latest industry reports and updates. For a deeper dive into all things sports tech, check out our comprehensive database, Sports Tech DB, at sportstechdb.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media. You can find us at SportsTechX on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Join us next time for another insightful conversation with a leader in sports tech.